my joy to welcome you to this little house of worship on this little corner of God's vineyard. We call it Faith Community Church.
Yes.
It has been our pleasure to work for the past several months with North Carolina Warren in the preparation and installation of the solar panel.
And I would just like to say how honored I and all of our folks are to be working with the Faith Community Church and the Beloved Community Center for quite a while now on this project and some before that. We're here today to announce a solar test case that targets state policy in North Carolina. It is an announcement that has benefit directly for the church and its mission, and it is a situation where the church does now have 5.2 kilowatt capacity of solar power on the roof. It's a partnership that is designed to impact state policy at a critical time, because the church will be buying the power from the system from NC Warren, the partner organization. Now, this is an unusual situation where NC Warren will continue to own the system, but the church will be buying power at a price far less than what Duke Energy has been selling power for. We're doing this together because we believe that this state needs energy competition and not monopoly control of rooftops. We are here today to say that we have a legal case that is very strong, that third-party sales should be allowed, and that this type of arrangement is consistent with state energy policy. It is consistent with state policy that prohibits very strictly in the Constitution monopoly business operations, and it is consistent with stewardship of the earth and our resources.
First off, I would like to acknowledge Faith Community Church, Beloved, and Reverend Johnson for being champions of solar, and especially for their Energy Freedom Act. Solar helps all customers. Hopefully, like Jim said, the General Assembly will clarify it before the regulators do. Third-party solar could be helping all electricity customers and avoid rate hikes for more power plants, but only if companies offering third-party sales are allowed to compete in the state of North Carolina. That's the main point right here. I'll go back to the chokehold, because we're under a chokehold. We need the monopoly broken. So hopefully with your help and our fight and your fight, we will make that happen.
I want to say some words that will perhaps capture what has already been said in a slightly different way. From the perspective, if you start from Faith Community Church, we see ourselves as a small church, but our mission is not small. It is to engage all principalities and powers in the deep belief that we can and should have a better world. And we pay particular attention to the most marginalized, to those who are pushed to the sidelines of life, and yea, into the ditches of death. And so we gather out of that spirit. And what this particular act does for Faith Community Church, it reduces the energy costs. That's very important because we are paying too much for electrical energy when we don't have to pay it. Number two, we hope that this models for other churches and other cities an entree more fully into the solar energy area, and we just believe it makes sense. If it reduces your costs and it reduces the carbon footprint, why wouldn't you do it? And I think it has special significance because of what Raven was saying about how it impacts the environment. that we are called to be stewards of the earth. We don't own the earth. By the way, the earth is given. Everything here is given. We interact with it in such a way that we produce a chair out of a tree, but we didn't invent the tree. That's all given. And it's given to be shared among us. And so we don't think that a monopoly named Duke has entitlement, inherent entitlement, to grab the sun's energy that's given and filter it through a money-making mechanism that leaves some people on the sidelines and in the ditches of debt because they cannot pay their bills. And so it's our moral responsibility to actually undertake this work. Somebody asked a few minutes ago when we were on the phone upstairs, is this connected to the civil rights movement? You know, and we said, of course it is. Because the civil rights movement was about the dignity and the worth and the enormous unrealized potential of all of God's children. And this is the very same thing. I would extend it to say the human rights movement. And so we are very, very honored today to be in partnership with North Carolina Warren. And we are even more honored to have, and I'm biased toward the clergy, to have our clergy friends with us today. Because I think the church has a particular role. The church has to take risks. The church has to step out and demonstrate for the community what thus say the Lord that's good for the people.